on now at your local Jeep dealer. I'm Matt Pauley with the Sports Flash on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio.
Pay some bills there, baby. All right. Hey, it's Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now. We own the Tri-Cities. On 1420 WEMB Sports Radio, because I've got the hardest hitting opinions and the best guests in the market. And we've gotten some feedback here because we're getting lots more attention than ever after Wednesday's press conference with Steve Forbes and such. And I mean, a lot of it is very positive. I want to read off some of that I have received, which goes far beyond the jackals on Twitter, to tell you the truth. But anyway, I think I'm up to 3 parody accounts now. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Hey, because it's publicity. There's not any, parody accounts of, I don't know, so-and-so minor leaguer in Knoxville or something, Anyway, in today's show, we're going to have on, let's see here, we're going to have on at 1 p.m. the Right Rev of Speed. That's Jerry Bonkowski. He's going to join me, NBCSports.com, as well as sometimes Sirius. Tomorrow they run in Kansas. And they ran in Dover the week before. So I'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about Martin Truex Jr.'s victory and what to look for in Kansas. And I'm going to ask him why Kansas has become this, iconic track almost. It's Kansas City, but it's, they wanted to move the Hall of Fame there. What is it about what is it about Kansas? Now, there are certain cities that are desperately trying to get involved in the sports scene, and this is something that I'd like to see Johnson City and Kingsport and Bristol and Irwin and Elizabeth and Greenville and all these places get involved with. To a certain extent, we've got it. We've got it with the Bristol Motor Speedway, but you know what I talk about. New arena. Let's get ETSU a little bit higher profile. Let's get a hockey team in town. If not, indoor football and all the concerts and circuses and events that a new arena would bring in, because right now Freedom Hall is Dullsville. Especially its location is Dullsville, not to mention its event schedule is Dullsville. And what else you got around here? Anyway, so you got that. But the higher profile. I look at certain cities are actually, Orlando is a good example of this. I mean, you say, why does Orlando with Disney need ball clubs? Well, hey. And, Orlando, they made sure, the thing about Orlando is that they couldn't get a football team if they wanted it. I'm talking NFL. The reason why, it's too close to Tampa Bay. There's proximity, you've got to have a bit, Jacksonville, you can have a team. Theoretically, Tallahassee, you could have a team, Tampa, Orlando's only 60 miles away. That's too close, they say. So, if you're wondering, Jets and Giants, those were grandfathered in. I do not quite understand how 2 can be in Los Angeles, and not 1 in Orlando. Certainly that's a baseball rule. The Rays have occasionally played in Orlando, I guess with their circumstance where they don't draw very much or only draw in a quarter capacity. I guess Orlando could sort of say, why don't you move here, please? But they've tried a lot. They've got the soccer team. There are always events and all that going on. San Antonio the same way. Now they've got the Spurs, but they've tried to build up, as has Orlando, their local college. This is what I'd like to see happen here with ETSU. UTSA, okay, and an incarnate word. These are not, Texas and Texas A&M. No one is saying they are, but they've advanced up the ladder. UTSA used to really recruit this area, by the way. They had an assistant coach, went on to Alabama, actually. But regardless. And the same thing you see UCF in Orlando. Okay, and also San Antonio is, they've got, we'd love to have a pro football team. We've built the Alamo Dome. And the Cowboys basically say, no. And the Oilers basically say, no. Not the Oilers. Look, what year am I living in? The Texans. Anyhow, I'm living in 1996, folks. That's when I started doing a show here on this station, actually. I guess I'm living in the past because it came to mind that, we had the Bruins beat the Canes first game of the Eastern Conference Finals. And I've called it the Don Cherry series due to the fact that Cherry most notably coached the Bruins, and he called the Canes a bunch of jerks. And if you don't know, Don Cherry does Coach's Corner, CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, Hockey Night in Canada, which has been compared to Monday Night Football. Only one difference. Hockey Night in Canada is still relevant. Now, if you're not aware, the Canes are known for their extravagant post-game celebrations after victories, hence it has caught the ire of a hockey old-timer like Cherry, who I didn't realize he's 85 years old and 85 years young. I mean, he's 85 going on 58, but he still champions aggressive hockey, the fights and all that. And by the way, aggressive hockey was the code of the day in Game 1. As I said, this is going to be slugging versus skating, although, we've had on Alex Doherty of A to Z Sports Knoxville, or A to Z Sports Nashville, say, the Canes aren't as clean as you think, but they're not as penalized as the Bruins are. But Cherry has given, with those comments, spice the Eastern Conference Finals. But it should be mentioned here, we're going to go down memory lane. 40 years ago today, he became a hockey legend, not for a victory, but a loss. Okay, it's May 10th, 1979, Game 7 of the semifinals between Boston and Montreal. The Bruins have lost 13 straight playoff series to the Habs dating back to 1945. In fact, there's a whole 4-minute segment. I'm going to try to pull this up on Don Cherry's Rock'em Sock'em Hockey 2 on this game. That's the one that he's best known for, okay? And, you figure what the rivalry in hockey would be. Maybe you're very Americanized and you think it's Islanders, Rangers. Well, you might say, what about, the Sweater Rock Carrier? Maple Leafs and Habs. Well, that's about it. French-speaking Canada versus English-speaking. We get it. But really, the old-time hockey history goes to the Bruins and the Habs. You've got Eddie Shore of the Bruins, 60-minute effort, 1929 in Montreal, without sleep. After driving through a snowstorm, he missed team train. Commissioned a car, snowstorm, put snow chains on the car. This is before interstate highways, folks. He drives through the night. They have to actually take the windshield out of the car. His face is all weather-beaten and wind-burned and all of that when he arrives in Montreal. And he only has time to get a pregame meal of a steak dinner. And he goes out and he plays 60 minutes, scores the only goal of the game. Bruins beat the Habs 1-0. By the way, Habs is Le Habitant, if you weren't aware. Get Montreal Canadiens. That's right. You have secondary reference. Tennessee Volunteers are the Vols. ETSU Buccaneers are the Bucks. Pittsburgh Pirates are the Bucks. All that. So sometimes this is one of those cases where it's not necessarily flowing. As I say, Pittsburgh Pirates are the Bucks. Well, Montreal, the Canadiens are the Habs. So there you go. But you've got that, but also I think the birth of perhaps the Quebec independence movement that happened in 1955. Maurice Richard, Hal Lacoe, high-sticking incident. Commissioner Campbell, Clarence Campbell said that Richard would be suspended the rest of the year after that, and the people in Montreal, these French-speaking, very nice Canadians, rioted. And it was said that is the movement. That's where the Independence for Quebec movement started. So there's quite a bunch of history with the Habs and the Bruins. But the thing was, it used to always be the Habs won. Okay? And by the way, you could also say two different countries here, America versus Canada. Although so many of the players, certainly back in the old days in Boston, were Canadian. But anyway, let me just give you this example here. In the Boston Bruins from 1945 to 1988 lost 18 straight playoff series to the Montreal Canadiens. 18 straight. That just, yeah, you get it, okay? And so I want to take you to 40 years ago, May 10th, 1979. Bruins and the Habs are tied, 3 games apiece. It is the Eastern Conference semi. Maybe I could find Don Cherry on Rock'em Sock'em Hockey to explain this to you. Maybe after we come back, I could get this to you. But anyway, as he says, whoever won this game was going to go on and win the cup because the Rangers, we all knew it, were cake. Now, there you go. That was who they were going to play in the Stanley Cup Finals, the winner of this game. Now, these two teams met in the Stanley Cup Finals a year before. Cherry, very, proponent of aggressive, penalty-filled hockey, said, Guy Lafleur, probably best player in hockey at the time, keep your stick up to him, shadow him. By the end of the series, Lafleur's face is all slashed up. That was what happened the year before. But now it's time, 79, game 3-3 series, one game, Montreal Forum, 13 series in a row, dating back 34 years at the time. And guess what? The Lunch Pail Gang, Boston Bruins, against a team whose best player was nicknamed the Flower, Guy Lafleur. They're up 3-1. But then there is a very controversial high sticking penalty. And what it was Bob Gainey endured a high stick from Jean Rattel. Now, this was very controversial. And a lot of people did not think this was, including Don Cherry. They said, Bob Gainey is the Lady Bing winner. That's the most gentlemanly player. So he was able to take the call. He was able to get the call that way. Anyway, it's 3-1 Bruins. Crowd changes, all this. Habs tie it up. Lafleur gets the game tying goal. Boston goes ahead 4-3 in the third period. But then, because Cherry had this idea that he was going to shadow Guy Lafleur, that became the coaching strategy that turned the series. And I'll tell you how after this on Tri-Cities Sports Now.